Hi everybody, I hope that the quiz went really well today. If you don't feel great about it, make some time to see me. I'm available every single day before school and a lot of days after school. Mr. Geckel is also available. So between the two of us, we can absolutely find time to work with you to make sure you feel 100% confident with these skills. It might just take 10 minutes every now and then. It doesn't have to be a full hour like it was in middle school of after school help, right? A quick little pop-in goes a long way. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to practice these skills using parentheses, right? The parentheses are key here. Okay, so I hope you paused. I hope you did them. So the first one, I'm going to put my 6 in parentheses. Remember how that's really important. 8 minus -3 squared. First thing I'm going to do is my parentheses. And I love using those zoom in boxes, right? Because it helps you really see exactly what operation is happening and exactly what the exponent is touching. 36, this 8 was tied to that 6 with multiplication, so it needs to stay the same way. 36 times 8, 288. Minus 9, if you don't know that in your head, don't be afraid to do it out, is 279. There we go. Let's grab a new color. Okay, same thing here, using our parentheses. I'm going to put a big set of parentheses there to show that it's separate from our little guys here. +2, -3, and then close it. We're going to do inside the group first. These two things are tied with multiplication. Include the sign. 5 times 6 minus. We can take that out because that's tied to this with that addition symbol. So 2 times -3 is -6. Okay, simplify inside the group. You know what? I'm also going to combine these two. 30 minus 2 is 28. Parentheses make a difference. Okay, so today we're going to start going more into algebra and function notation. Function notation is something that you did last year. It's really just fancy substitution. Fancy substitution. F of x is the same thing as saying y. It's the function of x. It's the output. The output. What's really nice about it is that here you always can tell what our input was. So this exact little thing right here is our input, but the whole thing is the output. So together, it makes a coordinate pair. So we can look every time we see a match, that's also the input. Now our g of x is the same exact thing. This is our output, and this guy is our input. The only difference is the g tells us what function to look at. It's like a key. Whereas the f tells us to go to the other function, like a little key. Okay, so f of 2. That means this is our input in our f function. So we're going to write the exact same thing as the f function, but instead of writing an x, we're going to write a 2. And we're substituting, so we keep those parentheses. Let's do our exponent. 2 times 4 minus 3 times 2 minus 5. Let's do our multiplication. 8 minus 6, right? Multiplication you have to do every single time. You can't just start doing 8 minus 3, right? You've got to do all the multiplication. 8 minus 6 is 2. Minus 5 is -3. So our final answer is going to be this. F of 2 equals -3. And now we know, when we're looking at our answer, what our x was and what our y is. It's a nice little coordinate pair. 2, -3. Really cool. Go over to our g function. It's going to equal, remember, we're going to write the exact same function, but instead of our x, we're going to write this, our new input. Do our multiplication first. And we've got 42. So G at -8 was 42, equals 42. Our input was -8. Our output is 42. Easy peasy. Let's look real quick down at these guys at the bottom here. This is an f function, but this time it's saying our input is y. So again, we're going to write the exact same thing, except instead of x, you're going to write a y. Easy peasy. There are no like terms, so you can't combine it. It's done. That's as far as you can go. This one looks hard, but it's really not. Again, instead of writing an x, we're going to write this new input. But the new input just has more pieces to it. -5 times 6z is -30z plus 2. Those aren't like terms, so we can't combine them. So g at 6z equals -30z plus 2. And that's your whole answer. Right? You just evaluate it as much as you can. Slide 3. Now, we know from our last slide that g of 2, the values for g of 2 and g of -8. At 2, when our input was 2, was -3, and that when our input on our g function was -8, we got 42. So what we're going to do now is do a little fancy replacing. If we didn't already know that, we would do both of these pieces differently. So I would have done all the math for f of 2 from the last slide. So if that was like f of 3, you'd have to do it again. You'd have to plug in 3 and calculate it, and then figure out what the answer was, which in this case is -3. And then you would do this g function, -8. We already know the answer is 42. But if it was something like 7, you'd have to plug it in and see what the output was. And we're going to combine those two outputs, and that's it. We've got 39. Okay? Again, over here, we're going to do whatever this is telling us. Luckily, this case, we know the answer. But we might not have, right? You might have had to plug something else in and got your output, right? Whatever. Do the math, plug it in. There's your answer. Times g at -8, 42. That's going to be -126. And there's your answer. You just take those outputs, and you plug it in and use it. Oops. Slide 4. Now, f at g of 2. This is like a double input. So we're going to do one step at a time. Let's do this. Let's find what g at 2 is first. So g at 2 is -5 times 2 plus 2, which is -10 plus 2, which is -8. So g at 2 was -8. Now, we're going to take that value and plug it into our f function, right? We just took the output. That's the input for the other guy. Working one step at a time. So f at -8 is going to equal 2 times -8, the parentheses are key, squared minus 3 times -8 minus 5. That's touching the parentheses, so it's the parentheses repeated twice. So 2 times 64 minus 3 times -8 minus 5. Now we're going to do our multiplication. I'm going to put zoom in boxes around both multiplications. 128 plus 24 minus 5. That's going to be, what, 152 minus 5 equals 147. Big number, but not too bad math, right? Show all your little pieces. Plug it all in. One piece at a time. That's all it takes here. Okay, we're getting there. This is saying f of x minus the g of x. So you're taking one function's value and subtracting the other function's value. Now, this is still saying the function at x. So for our f function, the input's going to stay x. If it was something different, we would calculate it, plug it in, and calculate it. But we're really lucky here because this just says to take that x value. So the input of our function with x is just this. It doesn't change. Minus our g of x. Well, the x input was x, so it doesn't change. But I'm going to put it in parentheses because we're subtracting that whole expression. We're subtracting that whole value. And that changes things, we know, because now we're subtracting this. We have to distribute our negative sign. So this didn't change. This was 2x squared minus 3x minus 5. That's now positive 5x. And that's now negative 2, distributing the negative. Finally, we can combine like terms. I've got a negative 3x and a positive 5x. Okay, so 2x squared didn't have any matching terms. Negative 3x plus 5x is positive 2x. And then we have negative 5 and negative 2. And when you put those together, you get negative 7. Final answer. One final slide. Don't be afraid to rewatch this video and take notes again. There's a lot of information here. Okay. F of 2 plus 3. Now we have a different f function here. And that's going to happen, right? And every single worksheet, every single test, every single quiz, you have to use whatever function is listed. The function's going to change. Just like on that do now, where we had two different expressions that you substituted for, that's going to change every single time. Our f function this time is, the input is x, 4x minus 3. We're going to start with doing this. Our function at 2, with our input being 2. So f of 2 equals 4 times 2 minus 3. 12 minus 3 is 9. So our function at 2, when our input was 2, our output is 9. Well, the next step of this problem is to add 3 to that. So we're going to take f of 2, which is 9, and add 3. And we get 12. Easy peasy, right? Last one. This time our input is a whole expression. So we're going to take that f of 3x minus 2 and replace our input with this whole expression. Okay? The minus 3 doesn't change. We just replace the input. Distribute our 4. Minus 8. Don't forget that negative 3. And then just combine like terms. So when our input was 3x minus 2, our output was 12x minus 11. Okay, long set of notes, but you got this. Really easy. Just remember, input, calculate to get your answer, your output. Okay? You've got a couple Khan Academies posted. Get them done. Study, 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 and I will see you on Monday.